Hello, everyone. My name is Brennan Marr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator, and welcome to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast, on this Juneteenth. What is Juneteenth, you might add? You might ask. Juneteenth commemorates the end of slavery in the United States. Specifically, it is commemorating the day that Union Army General Gordon Granger proclaimed the freedom of slaves in Texas on June 19th, 1865. Many of the southern states had held on to slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation was passed in 1863. During the middle of the Civil War. But it wasn't until the war was over that all the southern states had freed their slaves once the Confederacy had been defeated. And so Juneteenth celebrates the end of slavery in the United States. Or rather, maybe celebrate is the wrong word, it commemorates. So on this day, we commemorate the end of slavery. Now, you may be wondering, how am I going to tie Star Wars into Juneteenth? Well, we'll get there in just a minute. First off, a bit of sad news. Sir Ian Holm, best known for playing the older Bilbo Baggins in Lord of the Rings, has passed away at the age of 88. He had a long and illustrious career, starring in movies like Ridley Scott's Alien, Terry Gilliam's Time Bandits, also starring in movies like From Hell, and others. The list just goes on and on and on. But best known to my generation as Bilbo Baggins in The Lord of the Rings. Now, as far as I know, Sir Ian Holm never appeared in anything Star Wars related. But nonetheless, I thought it would be good to give a tribute to him. He was 88 years old. He lived a long and full life. So rest in peace, Sir Ian. You will be missed deeply. But he leaves a great legacy behind. Okay, today we're going to commemorate Juneteenth. Now, as I said, you may be wondering what Star Wars has to do with Juneteenth. And I think Finn. Finn is the answer. Now, a week or two ago, I did an episode of my podcast discussing how the story of Finn can be seen as an allegory for civil rights. And I believe that is still true. Or rather, that speaks for itself, so I would recommend checking out that episode. So I'm not really going to reiterate what I said, other than the story of Finn can be interpreted as the story of a black man saying enough is enough and finding the courage to fight back. And I think that that is an appropriate message for this special Juneteenth. Now, believe it or not, I didn't really learn about Juneteenth until watching the show Blackish with Anthony Anderson, where they were discussing Juneteenth. And I'm glad that I know about it now because I feel very ignorant that I didn't learn about it. Now, in commemoration of Juneteenth and in commemoration of what has been going on right now with the terrible racial violence in our country, let me just recommend a couple of movies really quick. Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X, Black Klansman, The Five Bloods, Selma, and the Watchmen miniseries are just a few things that I would recommend to you to watch that really give a more honest depiction of the institutional racism in our country. And certainly much more honest interpretation or honest artistic depiction than movies like Driving Miss Daisy and The Help. So those are some things I might recommend for you to commemorate Juneteenth, as well as the lives that have been lost in this horrible racial violence that we've seen in our country. Unfortunately, often by those who are police officers. Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, after hearing about our sponsor, I'm going to give you my reasons why Finn's story is appropriate for Juneteenth. See you in a moment. Hello there, this is Brennan Marr, host of Page Turners They Were Not, a Star Wars podcast. And I'm here to tell you about Anchor. Anchor is the best way to make a podcast. Why is that? Well, first off, it's free. Yes, you heard me right. Anchor is free. Anchor has all the tools you need to make a podcast from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you on various platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can make money from your podcast. And get this, with no minimum listenership. That means you can make money even if no one listens to your podcast. That, of course, is not ideal, as Anchor will allow you to spread your podcast, bring in more viewers, and you can make more money because of it. Everything you need to make a podcast is in one place on Anchor. If you're interested, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Thank you, and may the force be with you. Okay, we are back. Now, how does Finn's story connect to Juneteenth? Finn was essentially a slave, if you think about it. The First Order took him from his family, raised him without a name, only a number, by the way. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I went, when it dawned on me, wait a minute, he had a number, he didn't have a name. They assigned him some arbitrary definition, FN 2187, and took away his identity, and basically enslaved him to an oppressive regime. Later, when I believe through the Force, Finn was able to break the conditioning they put on him. When he helped Poe escape, Poe heard his name but said, "I'm not going to call you that." He said, "I ain't calling you that, or I ain't using it. Finn, I'm going to call you Finn." And Finn liked that name and kept it, and it stuck. The idea came to mind that during slavery, the slaves were given names by their masters, whether it be like George Washington had a slave named Hercules. Now, when the slaves were freed, many changed their names. And many also took on names. But one of the things that we've seen in recent years, particularly with like Malcolm X, were Black Americans changing their names to fit their own identity and not the arbitrary names given to them by slave owners and things like that. Many slaves who were freed still kept the surnames given to them by others. So Malcolm Little changed his name to El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. We often call him Malcolm X, but he chose a name that he felt fit him. So the idea of Finn changing his name to something that he felt more comfortable with is to me a parallel of escaping slavery. Finn stood up to those who enslaved him and said, "Enough is enough, I'm fighting back." I think 2 or 3 times in The Force Awakens he is called traitor. Now this brings me to another thought, which is not necessarily slavery. Let me give you an example, and this is just my opinion. When Kaepernick kneeled during the flag ceremony, during the national anthem, and others followed suit, we called them traitors. We said that their behavior was traitorous against the flag, against the veterans, against this country, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to be honest with you, folks. I don't think he was being a traitor. I think he was doing a good thing. And this may cause some of you to not want to listen any further to what I have to say. And you know what? I don't blame you, but I have to be honest with how I feel about it. So, I think that it's interesting that Finn is called traitor. Just like we called some of these people traitor for standing up to a system that has treated them badly for a long time. Now, Finn's defiance of the First Order. Finn saying, "I'm not going to be your slave. I'm going to fight back." that inspired others to fight back. It inspired Tamori Blag, otherwise known as Broom Kid on Canto Bight. It also inspired other stormtroopers who were also basically slaves to fight back. Jannah knew who Finn was, and it was implied that she and her team defected or turned away from the First Order because they were inspired by Finn's defiance. This brings us to individuals like Nat Turner and Harriet Tubman, who ran away and fought against the system and inspired other people to fight back too. And Finn certainly does that by inspiring Jannah and her comrades, who might also be force sensitive, to break their bonds and fight back against the oppressive system that enslaved them. Star Wars is a lighthearted fantasy, yes. But as with art, we can choose to interpret it the way we want, or at least that's my belief. Now, in the face of real-world slavery, real-world racism, Star Wars is very little. Fiction is very unimportant compared to the real-world issues. But art can inspire us. And I think that's why it's important to talk about art on Juneteenth. The stories that inspire us to fight for a better world, a world of better equality for all people, no matter their color. We are all brothers and sisters. We all are children of God. We should love one another as we love ourselves. But the story of Finn in the Star Wars Sequel Trilogy is inspiring to me, particularly at this time. So those are my thoughts. My name is Brennan Narr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. I encourage you to get involved with this struggle in what ways you can. Thank you for tuning in to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.